Hi everyone. Some time ago you'll have seen me make these notebook covers if you follow my YouTube channel and blog, and this was a design I bought from Design by Juju. And when I was originally stitching out my first design, I struggled a bit with how to position certain elements within the pattern, so I made a video showing how to make these notebook covers. If you've not seen it, I will put a link in this video to how I made the covers, and then you'll be able to go and watch that. But basically they have an elastic fastening, they have a little pocket on the front that you can put in or leave off to put your pen, and then they just house a notebook. And I've made them, as you can see here, in various colours. Some were made for me, some were gifted, a couple I had up for sale. But the reason I'm coming on today is that I've seen the question asked several times about how do you add personalisation to this file. So that's what I want to show you. Now I'm going to show you two ways. I'm going to show you how to do it with software, and I'll be using Embroidery Essentials, but I'm also going to show you how to do it directly on your embroidery machine. So if you want to know how to do that, please keep watching. Okay, so the first way I'm going to show you is using Embroidery Essentials, and to save some time, I've got a new blank page opened up here with Embroidery Essentials. I'm going to come to the top of the page and I'm going to go to the desktop where I've got the front panel of the Designs by Juju notebook cover saved for the purposes of this video. So I'm going to click open. That's going to drop the front panel into my hoop. Now if you come over to the right hand side, you will see the design. Now I use a Mac and my design here says number 1 and it has a little arrow. Yours may have a plus if you use Windows. The other thing I would say before I go any further, if you come up to the top of the page and select View, and make sure that under Manage Views you have all these options ticked here that you can see, and that you've got all the options ticked here that you can see, and then that way hopefully your Embroidery Essentials properties panes, which are these two panes over on the right hand side, will look the same as mine. So the first thing we need to do is click on the little arrow or the plus sign, whichever one you have, next to number 1, and that will open up all the steps that are in this front panel. Okay, these are all your embroidery stitching steps, and if you click on each one, I'm just clicking on the number, so this is 1 of 1, and it highlights what we'll stitch, and then I click on number 2 and it's highlighting number 3, number 4, etc. So what you need to do to add personalisation to this front cover is you need to add any personalisation at all after this step. Now I'm using the cross hatch design for this. There are from memory a couple of other quilting designs within this file, so you will just need to go to whichever one you choose and find the quilting design in the specific file that you're using. Okay, it will probably still be step number 4, but as I say, I'm using the cross hatch. I can't remember what the other ones are, but I know there are several designs in the file. It's actually quite some time since I stitched out this design. Step number 4 is the cross hatch. Another way to check is if you come up to the top of the page while you're in Embroidery Essentials and you click on the needle with a thread running through it, which is Stitch Simulator, it brings up this bar. And if you come over here and drag on this little flag kite shaped design and drag it slowly, you'll see. So the first step, step 1, is the placement stitch that goes on the stabilizer. Step 2 is the tack down stitch for the batting. Step 3 is the tack down stitch for the fabric. Step 4 is the quilting crosshatch stitch in my particular file here. Step 5 then is what it's putting in up here. So you need to add any personalisation after the quilting before it goes any further. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Now I'm going to show you a way to add a pattern and a way to add text. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got just a random pattern saved on my desktop. So if it's a pattern, another pattern you want to add in to the front panel of your notebook cover, once you've got this on your screen and everything, you come up to the top here where it's got like a needle and what looks like 2 blue pieces of paper. And if you hover over it, it says merge a stitch file. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to find this design I've got saved on my desktop. Now, I personally probably wouldn't use this design. It's a little big, but I just grabbed a free file that I've got saved just for the purposes of showing you how to do it. So I'm going to left double click and it will drop the design in the center of my hoop. So I'm going to left click on it and I'm going to drag it down and kind of position it, a bit, maybe about an inch from the right hand edge and about an inch from the bottom. As I say, this is a bit big for I personally think for this design, but I just want to show you how to merge another design or how to add, text. So this is just what I've got. I could adjust it slightly if I want to, but I'm not going to mess about with sizing or anything. It's just literally how to add this personalisation onto the front cover. Now, if we come over here to the right hand side, you'll see here's file number 1, which is the Design by Juju steps. And now it's dropped in this file number 2. Now, again, yours may just show as number 2 with an arrow or a plus. If you click on the arrow or the plus, it will open all the steps in that pattern. You don't have to have this section all open to do this. But basically, if we leave this file as it is now and save it and put it on a USB stick and take it over to our embroidery machine and stitch it, it will stitch out the whole of the front cover and then it will try to stitch the personalisation out. And that's not what we want, because this front cover includes an element of the lining. So we need to put this personalisation in before the whole of this front cover is stitched. So like I said at the beginning, it needs to go in after this quilting step, which is step 4. So I'm going to left click on this number 2 to select it, and I'm going to drag it up and I'm going to drop it in after step 1.4, which is the quilting. Okay, so it's here with all its, if I click on the downward arrow, with all its steps that make up that butterfly or dragonfly design. And then you'll see here, number 3, it's gone back to Design by Juju and all the rest of the sections that are involved in making the front panel. So again, now, if we go up to the top of the page and go to the Stitch Simulator, which is the needle with like a thread running through it, and bring up the Colour Stitch Simulator again and drag on the handle. Now, if you remember last time, we had the step in red was the quilting, and then it carried on to do the rest of the front panel. So this time, if we do step 1 is the stitch out for the stabilizer. Step 2 is the stitch out to tack down the batting. Step 3 is the tack down to hold down the fabric. Step 4 is the quilting And step 5 now, you can see it's starting to add in the embroidery file, and it will keep working its way through all the design until all that file we've just added in, the personalisation, is stitched out. I'm still dragging the simulator along, and then you can see here it's doing the last bit of the personalisation, and then it's going to go back into, if you see here, doing the steps to finalise the front cover. So I'm just going to get rid of the personalisation. I'm actually going to delete everything just to make it easier. So again, I'm going to come back to open. I'm going to come to my desktop. I'm going to find the front panel. That's going to drop the front panel into the middle of my hoop. And this time I'm going to add an initial. This could be a name, it could just be an initial, whatever you want. So I'm going to come up to the text icon and select that. And in Embrilliance Essentials, it automatically puts, when you select the text icon, it puts ABC in the middle of your page. And again, if you come over to the right hand panel, you'll see here under letters, it's got ABC. So if I just change that to A and hit enter on my keyboard, and this is just a font that I last used, it's a font that I've purchased. Honestly can't remember where it's from, but that's the font I'm going to use for now. It's a BX font, and I know that because it's got a needle next to it. If you want to use Embrilliance's proprietary fonts, just look for any of your fonts in here that don't have the needle. If you've not installed any BX fonts, or you've not purchased any fonts and installed them, you know you'll only have a certain number in here. So this is one of the fonts. So I'm just going to go back and find that particular font, just because it's a little bit bigger, and hopefully you'll see it better on the screen. And again, I'm going to drag it down and I'm going to position it where I would probably want to put it. If I select the letter and come under the colour wheel, you can see that the colour that is assigned to this letter is deep rose. So when I come back up to step number 1 and open up all the embroidery steps for the front panel, I just want to make sure that there's nothing called, deep rose in here that's going to maybe confuse the software or anything like that. So again, it's personalisation. It doesn't matter whether it's another design or whether it's letters. It needs to go in after the quilting step. So again, I'm going to select it and I'm going to drag it up and I'm going to drop it underneath step 1.4. And again, I'm just going to come up to the stitch simulator, and then I'm going to drag the simulator along through the steps. Here's the personalisation, and then you can see the pink here, which is the deep rose. It's easier to see on this one because it's only one element and it's all one colour, whereas the previous one was lots of elements made up of lots of different colours, and that's why the stitch simulator had lots of colours in here. So again, I'm going to come along and finish the quilting, and then it's going to start doing my stitch out for my personalisation, and then it's going to go back and carry on and finish the front panel. So that's how you do it using software. If you want to know how to do this directly on your embroidery machine, keep watching. Okay, so to do this directly on your machine, I've got my USB stick loaded into the side of my machine and I've switched it on. So you need to go to Embroidery Edit. So I'm going to choose Embroidery Edit. I'm going to choose the USB stick because that's where the front panel of the design was saved. Now, I've saved the front panel and the dragonfly design, and they will be saved on the last page because they're what I've just added on to the USB stick last. So I'm just going to scroll down to page 4, which is my last page, and here are the two designs that I've just been working on in Embroidery Essentials. So I'm going to choose the front cover, and I'm going to choose set, and I'm going to choose embroidery, and that puts the design into the middle of my hoop that's selected on my machine. And as you can see here at the top, it's 3,113 stitches. It says it'll take 5 minutes, and there's 11 steps. Now we know from looking at it in Embroidery Essentials that the step where we need to stop to add personalisation is step 4. But again, all your steps are here with all your colours. And a way to have a look at the steps is, this is how I do it on my Brother V5 LE, but I think most Brother machines are the same. So somewhere within your settings on your machine or on your screen, you should see an icon that looks like a needle with a minus and a plus, this one here at the bottom. So I'm going to select that, and on my machine it brings everything up together. So all these icons here, these 8 icons that I'm showing you here, are all needle steps. So if I select this one, it would go back 1 needle. If I select this one, it would go back it would go back 1 stitch. If I select this one, it would go back 10 stitches and forward, etc. But I don't want to do stitches, I want stops or positions. So you need to be looking for the ones that look like the spools. So these are backwards and forwards in stitches. So it's good to know how to do this anyway for other designs. And the 2 that look like spools with a minus and a plus are backwards and forwards in actual steps. Okay, so on basically step 1 at the moment, if I click on the plus arrow, it will go to step 2. And if I click on the plus again next to the spool, it will go to step 3 and show me that's what that step is. And if I go to step 4, it will show me the cross hatching, the quilting. And then if I click it again and go to step 5, you're not going to see this, I doubt, on the screen, but it's showing me what step 5 is. It's this tiny little tack down stitch here. I think from memory that's for the elastic. So we don't want it to carry on stitching through there. We want to add some kind of personalisation. So I'm just going to close that for now and just come back to the main screen and hit return. So I'm back to just the front panel, which I've opened up using Embroidery Edit from the USB stick. So now I've got this option here that says add. So I'm going to choose add. So we'll do the easiest one first. We'll just add a letter. So I'm going to come into the font, and I'm just going to pick any font, and I'm going to choose a capital letter A. That's going to drop it in the middle of my screen. I'm going to say set, and then I can select it and drag it down to where I want to position it on the front of my book cover. And then I can again now say embroidery. So again, what would happen now is if I just go back into this needle icon and then back into my spools, you can see now I've got 12 steps, and that's because I've added in a letter which is all one colour, and that letter will stitch at the end. It's dropped it into the end. So again, if I click on the plus, and you can see me going up in steps here, and it's showing you in this window here what would be stitched. There's step 4. It's going to jump onto the next part of the front panel. We don't want that. We don't want it to go through all these steps, and we don't want it to go all the way to step 11 and then go to step 12 and stitch the letter at the end, because by that point it's too late, because we'll have added in an element of the rest of the design. So what you have to do here, I'm going to close this just to make it easier and return. So I'm back to my regular screen with the 2 designs. So what you would do here on your machine, you would you'd get your screen ready like this with your design on, remembering that your design has gone to step 12 and we want it basically to stitch out at step 5. So you would set your machine off, you'd put your hoop in, you'd do all your 4 steps. So let's pretend that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to the needle and I'm going to go to the spools, and you're going to have to imagine that my machine is sewing and that I've done step 3, I've done step 4, which is the crosshatch, and now I want to put the text in before I go any further. So at this point, once your machine finishes with this red colour, yours will be whatever colour you're loading your machine up with, but on the screen here, it's the stitch out in red. Once it finishes this step and stops, because step number 5 is a different colour, so it's going to stop after it's stitched this quilting, which is, as I say, shown here in red. You have to come and find these spools, and you have to scroll through until you get to step 12. You can see each time I'm selecting the plus next to the spool, the number's going up here, and you go all the way to step 12, and it's going to show you in this window what's going to stitch. You'll put your thread in, the colour that you're going to stitch your letter, stitch it out, and the machine will stop because it thinks it's finished the design, because it's got to stitch out 12 of 12. What you then do, you're going to have to come back now and use the minus arrow and come all the way back now. Keep hitting the minus arrow until you get to step 5, because you know step 4 is the quilting, and you know that you've got to carry on with the front panel, which is step 5. So you hit the minus arrow until you get to step 5. I can see up here in this preview window what step 5 is. You're probably not going to see it. I will try and zoom in on the video, but I'm not sure how well you'll see it, because it literally is about 3 stitches that I think it just holds the elastic in. So you come back to step 5 and then you carry on stitching the front panel, and that's how you add personalisation. Now, if you wanted to add a pattern, it's exactly the same. So we'll go to the home button and I'll say, yes, it's okay to delete all patterns. I'll come back to embroidery edit. I'll come to my USB stick. I'm just running through this quickly because it's exactly the same process. I'm going to scroll through to page 4 because I know that's where my front panel is. And I'm going to set that on my screen by pressing set. And then once I've set it onto the screen, I get the option to add. So I'm going to hit add. I'm going to come back to my USB stick this time. I'm going to scroll to page 4 of my USB stick because that's where the dragonfly design is. I'm going to set that onto the mat. And then once it's set, I can drag it and position it where I would want it to stitch out. And again, once I hit embroidery, you will now see there's 26 steps. And that's because there's 11 steps to make the front panel. And then the additional steps are all the steps that are involved in making this extra stitch out, this personalisation. So you would do exactly the same. You would put your hoop in, let your machine sew to step 5. Now, I'm just going to do this manually again. I'm just going to click on the arrow on the needle with the minus and the plus, and I'm just going to use the spools to go through the steps, but just, kind of imagine that I'm actually stitching this out. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 is the crosshatch. When that stops, you're then going to go all the way to step 12, because step 12 is where the personalisation starts. So you would come, as I say, and find this screen on your machine and just keep hitting the plus icon until you get to step 12. And step 12 is the first element of the personalisation. You would let your machine run automatically from step 12 to 26. And when it stops, it doesn't know that you've interrupted the stitch out. It will stop and it will think this design is finished. So again, you will come back to these spools. You need to find the spools and you'll come and hit the minus arrow and keep working your way. You can see the spools are going up here. So it's working its way back through the steps, and we need to get to step 5. Because remember, step 4, if I go back one more to step 4, that's the quilting. We've done that. We need to find step 5, and then you would carry on and finish the front panel. So I hope you found that helpful. Please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you don't already do so. I am still trying to get to 50,000 subscribers by the end of 2021. I'm not sure whether it's going to happen. I'm not far short of, I think, 40,000 subscribers, probably about maybe 38, 39,000 at the moment. But please subscribe. As I say, YouTube tell me that I think about 30 or 40% of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed. It doesn't cost you anything. It just basically, by subscribing, it will let you know when I upload a video. And by hitting the like button and giving me a thumbs up, that tells YouTube that you like this content, and other people that search for this type of content may like it, and it helps to get my videos pushed out to more people, and that's how my channel will grow. As I say, I hope this was helpful. Please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.